GPUs are where most people waste the most money. One wrong choice can cost you hundreds of dollars or even throttle your entire system. And the problem is, GPUs are complicated. You're balancing rasterization, ray tracing, upscaling, VRAM, power draw, size, cooling, and half the model names don't even make any sense. So in this video, I'm going to break down every variable you need to check before buying a GPU in a way that actually makes sense. First up, let's talk brands. GPUs are a little special because usually there is one brand for the GPU chip itself, and then there are board partners, each with their own differences. For the GPU chip itself, we have three brands: NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel. All of them design the chip, but mostly rely on Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company and Samsung for fabricating their chips, with Intel having some plans to move the GPU chips to their own factories. Sometimes NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel will also make the GPU board itself, often called the Founders Edition. But the GPU boards are mostly made by board partners such as ASUS, MSI, and Gigabyte. Based on references, they produce a wide variety of boards, all based on the same GPU chip. Each of these can have very different sizes, cooling solutions, power draw, video output, and some of them are also overclocked and perform slightly better. They also come in a wide variety of colors and RGB configurations. Before we go deeper, let's quickly decode GPU naming. Each brand uses a different system, but once you understand the pattern, it becomes easy to compare models. Let's start with NVIDIA. RTX just means that the card can do ray tracing. It was used as a differentiator when ray tracing was new, but now all the new cards have it. The first digit is the series, with the newest being the 5000 series. Next digit is usually a 0, but sometimes it's used as a way to say that the card is between two generations. This most recently happened with the 16 series lineup. That card used the newest architecture, but at the same time didn't have the new ray tracing cores that had just came out. The third digit tells the tire, and currently the last digit is always 0. The current tires are 90, 80, 70, 60, and 50, with 90 being the best and 50 being the worst. Besides the digits, there are also sometimes a suffix, such as TI, Super, or Gigabyte amount. TI means that the card is a bit stronger than the normal version. Super means that the card is a mid-generation refresh with some slight improvements. Lastly, there is sometimes a Gigabyte amount, such as 8 GB or 16 GB. This means that the same card comes in two configurations with different amounts of VRAM, with the newest examples of this being the 5060 Ti. Now on to AMD. AMD uses names like the RX 9070 XT. RX is just a prefix for all of their gaming GPUs. The first digit is the generation, with the newest being the 9000 series and the 8000 series being skipped. Digit 2 and digit 3 have switched places for the new generation. So now the second digit is always 0, while the third digit is the tire, and the last digit is also always 0. Currently AMD only has two tires, 70 and 60, with 70 being the best. The 60 tire is an entry to mid-level card, and the 70 is a mid-tier card. AMD did not make any high-end cards for this generation, so for the very best cards and the most expensive cards, you have to go to NVIDIA. Like NVIDIA cards, AMD also have some suffixes. They can have the suffix XT, which means it's a slightly better version, and it's very much like the TI suffix from NVIDIA. In addition to this, they also have a Gigabyte tile like NVIDIA for some cards if there are configurations with different amounts of VRAM. Now on to Intel. Intel uses names like the ARC B580. The ARC prefix is like AMD's RX prefix, and it's just a prefix Intel uses for the discrete GPUs. The letter is the generation, with A for Alchemist being the first generation, and B for Battlemage being the second and current generation. The first digit is the tire, and it's usually 3, 5, or 7, with the highest tire being the best. For this current generation, however, Intel has thus far only released tire 5 cards. The second digit is the sub-tire, and usually ranges from 1 to 8, with the highest being better. For this current generation, however, we only have sub-tire 7 and 8 so far. The key takeaway is that you can't compare across brands by numbers alone. Always check by the benchmarks. Before choosing a graphics card, you need to decide what resolution you plan to play at. Are you playing at 1080p, 1440p, or 4K? A card that is a beast at 1080p might crumble at 4K because the workload is much higher. And this brings us to the most critical spec: VRAM or video memory. Resolution is hungry for VRAM. If your GPU runs out of video memory, it has to swap data with your standard system RAM, which is much slower. The result? Stuttering, texture popping, and massive frame drops. One wrong choice can cost you hundreds of dollars or even throttle your entire system. As a general rule for modern AAA gaming, 8 GB is now the bare minimum for new games at 1080p, 12 GB is a sweet spot for 1440p, and 16 GB is essential if you want to play at 4K. Do not just look at the model number, A higher number doesn't always mean enough memory for the longevity you want. In addition, VRAM capacity isn't everything. The memory bus width and the bandwidth also matter. A 128-bit card can struggle at higher resolutions even if it has enough VRAM, simply by being too slow at loading the data into the VRAM. Once you know your resolution target, you need to decide how much you care about the visual features. The biggest one is ray tracing and path tracing. This mimics real-world light behavior. It looks incredible, but it also is brutally heavy on performance. Some modern titles like Indiana Jones and The Great Circle actually list ray tracing capable hardware as a requirement. If ray tracing is a priority for you, NVIDIA typically holds the performance lead here, followed by AMD and then Intel. Because ray tracing is so heavy, we might need upscaling. This renders the game at a much lower resolution, like 1080p, and uses AI or algorithms to blow it up to your monitor's full resolution, such as 4K. There are three main flavors of upscaling. DLSS, which is what NVIDIA has, generally offers the best image quality, but is locked to RTX cards. FSR, which is what AMD has, works on almost any GPU, but image quality can be slightly noisier. And lastly, we have XeSS, which is what Intel has. It is a middle ground that works best on Intel cards, but support both. Finally, we have frame generation. This inserts fake AI-generated frames between real frames to smooth out the motion. It makes the game look smoother, but it doesn't reduce input lag. Again, NVIDIA's solution is currently locked to the newer 40 series cards and up, while AMD's FSR3 frame generation works on a wide range of hardware. Now that we know what resolution to target and what features we care about, we can look up benchmarks of graphics cards for our wanted configuration. This is an important step to ensure that we get the best performing graphics card that our budget allows us. You can find benchmark numbers from sources such as Linus Tech Tips, Tom's Hardware, Gamers Nexus, Hardware Unboxed, and many more. I would recommend looking on at least a few of them, as the test can vary slightly. When looking at benchmarks, it's important that the computer used for testing has maxed out everything else to ensure that it's the graphics card that is the bottleneck. Else, the difference in performance between the high-end cards will appear smaller than it actually is. Okay, so you found a card that actually hits your performance targets. Now, can you actually fit it in your case? Modern GPUs are massive. You need to check three physical dimensions. First up, length. Will it hit your front-end case fans? Then the width. Does it fit inside your case? Is there a case fan in the side it would bump into? And lastly, the thickness. How many PCIe slots does it occupy? And then there is power. GPUs are power hungry. You need to ensure your power supply unit has enough wattage headroom, usually 100 to 150 watts above the estimated total system draw to handle transient spikes. You also need the right cables. Many modern high-end cards use the 12VH PWR connector, a single small plug that can deliver up to 600 watts. Older power supplies might need an adapter dongle, which can be messy and hard to manage. Make sure your power supply has the native cables your graphics card needs. Finally, cooling. A 300-watt GPU is basically a space heater inside your PC. Your case fans need to be set up to feed fresh, cool air directly into the GPU intake fans. If your case has poor airflow, that expensive GPU can thermally throttle and you will lose performance that you paid for. Graphics cards that have 3 fans are usually quieter and cooler than dual fan cards. And usually, I would avoid single fan cards for mid to high-end GPUs. Next, let's talk PCIe, the slot your GPU plugs into. The good news is that PCIe generation almost never bottlenecks gaming performance. A PCIe 4 card works perfectly fine in a PCIe 3 slot. What does matter is lane count. Most GPUs use the full by 16 connection, but some mid-range cards like the RTX 4060, 4060 Ti, and RX 7600 only use by 8 lanes. On a modern PCIe 4 motherboard, that's fine, but on an older PCIe 3 systems, those by 8 cards can lose performance because the bandwidth is cut in half. So the rule is simple. If your GPU uses by 8 lanes, pair it with a PCIe 4 motherboard or better to avoid bottlenecks. Briefly, if you do more than just game, like streaming or video editing, look for specific encoders. NVIDIA's NVENC is the industry standard for streaming quality, though AMD's AV1 encoders are also catching up and being quite good at the moment. If you do 3D rendering work, CUDA cores and NVIDIA cards often have better software support than the competition. It's a tiebreaker worth considering. So, how much of our budget should we use on the graphics card? For gaming, basically as much as possible. The graphics card has the highest impact on in-game performance out of all of the components. So generally, to get the most performance for your budget, you would want to have all of the other components be as cheap as possible without bottlenecking your PC. This generally means that for most builds, you should spend about 40 to 50% of the budget on the graphics card. For low budget builds, it's generally on the lower end, and for higher budget builds, it's generally on the higher end. That was a lot of variables: resolution, VRAM, ray tracing, DLSS, size, wattage, connectors, and budget allocation. If you don't want to track all of that manually, head over to MaxMyBuild.com. We factor in these compatibility checks automatically, while also looking at benchmarks and current pricing of all components. You just need to put in your budget and needs, and the tool ensures you get the best performance for your budget. If this guide helped you avoid a bottleneck, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.